So, Serena, in your introduction, you mentioned that you were of the Milton Mills school of thought and that you believe that reprehensible ideas should be brought to light.
Yep.
I understand that Faith Goldy was removed from the original August panel because of her podcast with the controversial Daily Stormer after Charlottesville. This seems like a performative contradiction to remove Faith because of one interview while claiming to believe in freedom of speech. This strategy also appears to parallel the SJWs who wish to deny platforms for controversial conservative speakers. I want to understand why Faith Goldy was removed from the event simply for associating with identitarians, and what do each of the panelists believe or agree with that decision?
That's an excellent question. So the first thing I should say is it's not like we're unaware of the irony, right? So number one, Ryerson canceled a panel about the cancellation of panels about free speech, right? That's irony number one. And then irony number two was the panelists removed a speaker for arguably engaging in the act of free speech. Okay, we got that, believe me. All right, so why did we come to this decision? I sat down personally, and the other people can say what they have to say. I sat down with my son and we went through Faith's interview. I know Faith. I don't believe that she's a reprehensible person. I think that Charlottesville was very shocking to her. I think that she put herself in a very difficult position. And I think some of that was brave, that she went down there to cover it. However, I listened very carefully to her podcast, the one that got her in trouble. And my sense was that she was associating with people whose views she should have questioned. It was her journalistic responsibility to question them. She had to ask at least one hard question. At least one. 3 would have been better. You know, and I understand that she had to toe a careful line. She was on the podcast. They had invited her on. It's much more difficult than you might think when you're facing people, even if you don't believe them, to be rude enough to challenge them, right? That's not so easy, especially if you're an agreeable person, and she is a rather agreeable person. But I believe that she failed in her journalistic responsibility. And as a consequence of that, she became too hot a property for us, and not just for us. And well, that was the reason for the decision. So that was my reasoning. So
I'll just add that we all spoke at length about this, the entire panel. This was not an overnight decision at all. And that was a question that we really struggled with in terms of what you just said, the Milton Mills School of Thinking. But there was a deeper question about the role of a journalist, because Faith is a journalist. And so we did hear the interview, so there was no journalism really taking place. I've met Faith, I like her. I'm the one who invited her. I find her to be a very nice person. But like Dr. Peterson just said, there was those other factors at play here. Had she asked those questions and still had done that show, of course we'd have her here. Absolutely. But those questions were not even asked, and that was an issue. I don't know if Dr. Saad...
I was just going to say exactly the same thing, that we were all very aware of this issue, and if you could see the number of email exchanges we went back. So it's not as though we didn't struggle with the matter and didn't recognize, the seriousness of the issue. But there is also a pragmatism, right? You may decide that you're all for freedom of speech. That doesn't mean that you invite to a dinner party someone whose views you don't agree with. I'm not saying that was the case with Faith Goldy. So the fact that you might, for some event, decide to disassociate from that person doesn't suggest that you are being hypocritical to freedom of speech, that there is a pragmatism that's set in. If she were here, perhaps there would have been a greater desire from some of the agitators to shut us down. Would that have served a good purpose for all of you to not be here? So at the end, what we ended up doing is went for pragmatism, notwithstanding the fact that we appreciate your point.
We're looking at the pragmatics. Plus, I want to add, as soon as we hung up on the call, I made the decision. I called Faith right away, and I told her, I said, I'm sorry. I said, I explained my position, and I reached out to her and said, if you want to speak, give me a call. Because I felt bad for what
Yeah,
we
I
did.
talked to her too, and because
I talked to her as well.
we all felt
And I'm the only one who hasn't, so apologies, Faith, for being an utter asshole.
Yeah, I mean, we felt to some degree that we threw her under the bus, you know, and at a time in her life where she was really in crisis, you know, but the journalism issue was really crucial here because she wasn't just doing that as a like everyday individual. She was technically in the role of journalist, and the role of journalist is to ask hard questions, especially under uncertain circumstances. So that was our decision.
Great question, thank you.